Welcome to Synergy Circles. This is John Blake, and I'm here joined today with Bill Sunderland. You've already heard Bill share with us about strategic planning today. Bill is going to talk with us a little about communication and the integral nature of that in our networks and partnerships. So, Bill, thanks so much for making time for us, and please share with us about communication.
Hey, John, thanks much for the introduction. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be here again. Communication, what an interesting subject, and of course, a subject that cannot be covered in the short amount of time we have here. But let's give it a try, especially in terms of our partnerships and networks, how critical it is to the functioning of a network. I want to approach this from two perspectives. One deals with the fact that we are voluntary nature and it depends upon the links. Communication is the links in a voluntary natured network. Thanks, John. I didn't know I was supposed to be flipping those old PowerPoint. The next deals with more of the elements of what communication is in terms of visual and writing and face-to-face as well as reading and audio. The perceived value of a network really depends upon the links that we enable within the network. In other words, we come together for a consultation or an event, a meeting of some type. We share with each other, we get to know each other, we form working groups, but then we go away and we go back to our individual ministries, our individual efforts, but we have a common purpose, and most often we have some very well thought out common objectives. The communication strategy that is then developed becomes the links between the different events. And if you read the paper that Dave Hackett wrote up, he gave us a great word picture, a great image of the posts or the stanchions of a fence being the events, and then the rails that connect the stanchions or the posts are our communications that keep us together and keep us informed. And I think if we have that word picture about communications in our context, in the networks and partnerships, that will really help us understand how important it is. You know, when you develop a communication strategy, it's very important to know who your audience is and to keep them informed. Who are all of the different audiences that you are talking to? There's obviously the people who are part of the network. There are the people who are part of the ministry that you are part of. And there are the funders, and obviously then finally there are the people that you are trying to touch and trying to reach. In communication, a regular schedule is very important. Jack Welch, who was former CEO of General Electric, had a very concise definition of what he thought communications was of his job, which is really the main job of a CEO. That was simplicity, consistency, and repetition. Another factor in communication is to make sure that your content is understood and it's leading towards the conclusion that you want the people to perceive or to understand. So content is important. And finally, there was a Canadian, some of you may remember this name, communications philosopher who coined the word that the medium is the message. And what he was saying in essence is that the medium you use, whether it's TV or visual or it's a small screen, on a smartphone, or it's a movie. That medium itself is part of the message and has a message that is separate from the content. So again, when you're developing strategy, you have to think of the different mediums that you will be using. You'll see on this slide a link to a YouTube video. It's very short, about 2.5 minutes, and it gives very basic definitions of what communication is. And really it is each act of transmitting information. And that's done through the spoken word, signs and symbols, and nonverbal gestures. I've got here a quote from George Bernard Shaw: "The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place." In other words, we think we're communicating, but we may not be communicating, or we may be communicating the wrong words or the wrong point. So the written word. The written word is emails, reports, websites, very intense in terms of vocabulary and nomenclature. Usually it's much more formal, and there are no verbal cues like there are in my presentation right now. You hear these little verbal cues as I may stumble over a word or an area. One thing about the written word, especially in today's world with the emails going all around, is hesitate before you hit that send button. Emails are very non-emotive. It's in the sense that you don't get the body language, you don't see into a person's eyes, you don't really hear the changes in his tone of voice. So you can put a lot of emotion in there, and sometimes very negative, and these other communication factors, which are 70% of communications, really are not understood or seen. The spoken word deals with loudness, pitch, speed, can convey warmth, can convey confidence. For a period of time, I was involved in sales and sales training, and what they taught often was to mirror the person sitting across from you, the prospective client. And by mirroring, that means to mimic not only the way that that person may be talking, but the way that person is sitting in the chair. And for a period in my life, I made thousands, literally thousands and thousands of phone calls. And what was very important was when that person first picked up that phone, that I would mimic his tone, his pitch, and even his words to a certain extent. So that's very important when you're dealing with the spoken word. And another factor in the spoken word is putting in filters, like you've heard me do today. Like, I think, sort of, like, sort of. So those will really detract from your communications. And finally, there's face-to-face communications. Face-to-face communications are critical in the sense of you get all the other communication factors involved there. That's why when we have, on a yearly basis, generally speaking, consultations or events where people come together, you get to press the flesh, you get to see who a person really is and how they're really behaving. And you listen. Another thing in my sales career in the past, I was calling a CEO one day, trying to sell him some sales training. And he asked me, he said, "Well, give me the definition of a salesperson, an excellent salesperson, in 4 words." And I kind of had to hesitate because I wasn't prepared for that. And I said, "Well, it's asking questions and listening." And that's really what we need to do. We need to ask questions. We need to be concerned about the person we're speaking to. And we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So we should listen at least 2/3 of the time. and speak the other third of the time. You can go to the website and look at a website, any website about communications and nonverbal and verbal communications, and find all of the different hints and little tricks in communications. So, 10 minutes is up. I hope I have not confused you. The most important thing to take away from this in terms of networks and partnerships is the necessity, the importance. A network won't function properly without individuals and the network developing a communication strategy and implementing it so that what you do in the meetings will expand out to the whole year. Again, thanks for your time.